In this video, I'm going to zoom in on the dollies with the house moving here. I'll just turn off a few things here so you can see what I'm talking about in this house moving thing we got here. And here's a rear dolly that is typical of what they're going to look like. And let me go back and bring up that particular dolly. So here's a typical rear dolly, and it's made up of a lot of different components, the body and the wheels and the axles. And today, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit here. Today I want to focus on this front connection, how this body connects to the axle. And when I first started building these things, I envisioned somehow having this bolt or this pivot point on the front axles of the frame. And my first idea was just a simple bolt that bolted in from the bottom with a nut that came into the top. So the thing about this particular design is that the body had a hole, this hex-shaped hole in the top, and also it would come loose. So I thought, well, maybe what we'll do is make this a one of those nylock lock nuts, and that way when this when the bolt screwed in, it would retain its weight. And at first I was thinking we'd have some kind of cap that would go over the top and fill this hole so that you wouldn't see it. And so then on my second version of the same thing, I thought, maybe instead of having the visible hole in the top, I envisioned that maybe we could put the nut in from the bottom and then have some kind of retainer that will hold it in place. So what I did for that is I made these pins that slid in from the front. You can't hardly see them because they slide in from the front. Actually, what they were was cut off pieces of paper clips. And with this design, the bolt could then come in from the bottom just like it did before, and the nut is inserted into the body from the bottom. The pins are then put into these little holes, and they lock the nut in there, and then when the bolt is put in, it goes up into it like that. And another thing about this design that you don't see in this picture is that once the instead of making this a round hole in the bottom for the bolt to go in through, I made it a hex-shaped hole. And so by inserting that in first and then by rotating the axle around in circles, you could get the right tightness. And then when you put the axle in and put the wheels on, it couldn't come loose because it couldn't rotate. So I didn't really like the amount of work that it took, and or the amount of work, not the amount of work, but the visibility. So on my third design, I was thinking of having these holes that you could insert in up at an angle. So for example, this to put this one together, you would insert this rod up through a hole in the body underneath, and it would go up at this angle like this, and then you would rotate it flat, and then it would do its job. So in this particular design, same as the one before, but now there's no visible holes from the front where you could see the pins. The only visible holes were these two underneath here, under the body, which you normally wouldn't look underneath. I'm saying, but the thing I didn't like about this design was you could see the holes, and you have a lot of work to push these little pins in here. So then I thought, okay, now how can we make this even simpler? So the final design, or let's say the latest design that we have, or that I came up with, is this one. And in this one, after you so I'll take out the bolt. Oh, here's another thing. You notice in this design here that there's no hole in the bottom of the axle housing, and what I was able to do was I was able to, when it gets down here to this point right here, you could tilt the bolt sideways and get it out through the hole. So you could insert it in through the axle hole, work its way up into this hole, and then it would push it up into here. And once again, the hole in the bottom of the, that's interesting. The hole in the bottom of where the head fits in is hex shaped, and so it locks it in place. So, and I don't know if you can see it in this picture here. Let's pull the bolt out. And this nut actually is got in there by sliding it in through this hole here. And it comes in from the bottom like this. Let me see if I get that. Oh, so get this over here further here. And so in this particular one, yeah, if I can, you bring the nut and you push it up into this hole from the bottom, and then slide it over inside of this opening. A little bit hard to see here. Into this hole like this, and then work the bolt in through the axle hole, bring it up into the spot. Now this particular design, I also widened out the flange on the upper part of the axle housing, so that it would, once this thing was assembled, it would hide this hole that the nut came through. And so from outside, from the outside, there's no sign of the holes where the nut goes. There's no sign of any kind of holes in the axle housing for the bolt. And so it's completely hidden, especially once you put the axle through the hole and the wheels on. There's no outward evidence of any kind of pins or things to hold the bolt in. And so this is the design that we have now. I'm pretty happy with it so far. Going back to the full Dolly model again, here we are with the whole thing. So let me turn off a couple layers here. We'll turn off the wheels, turn off the axles, the tongue. And in fact, if you look in there, you'll see everything that I was just talking about, that there's nothing visible on the outside of how these things are connected. Let's go ahead and turn off the front axle housing, look at underneath, and here's what we were just talking about. From the underside of the body, you can see here the square hole where the nut gets in and then slides forward, and then the pin goes up through it. So then when it's all put back together, we can turn all those layers back on. Once again, there is no visible, there's no hole in the bottom of the axle housing. You can't see up through the bottom of the body where the square hole is, where the nut went in. We don't have a hole on the top. So it's just a very clean look, and I hope you appreciate that. I just thought I'd end this video today by just showing a few pictures that we've made over the years. Here's the finished model that we took to the fairgrounds, the model that I built. And here's a zoomed in picture of the Dolly underneath the house. Here's the same house that we were just talking about with the Dollies. Here's a picture of a couple. There's my dad down in the lower corner there, riding on back a couple of Dollies back in 1957. Here's a typical house being moved. There's my dad leading the house down the road. It says Raper or Metzger and Raper house movers on the door. Uncle Eldon in the driver's seat. There's another picture of Uncle Eldon. And there's one more picture that they ended up putting in the Bellingham Herald. And thanks for watching.